Now we'll talk about section 2.5, which is an introduction to problem solving. So when we're solving word problems, the following steps are helpful. First, read the problem carefully, making sure to identify what the problem has asked you to find. Then choose a variable to represent each unknown in the problem. Then, using all that information, set up an equation to represent the problem and solve it. And then check your solution to make sure it makes sense in the original context of the problem. So, for example, let's look at number 7. When the quotient of 3 times a number and 7 is decreased by 13, the result is 2. What is the number? Well, okay, it's asking us to find that unknown number. So let's let that number, let's call it x. What else do we know? It says when the quotient, well, quotient means divide, of 3 times a number and 7 is decreased means subtract, by 13, the result is 2. So that means equals 2. So what does our equation look like? The quotient of 3 times a number and 7. So that looks like 3x divided by 7. And that's decreased by 13. And we want that to equal 2. So what's the first thing we should do? Well, by our rules of solving equations, we should add 13 to both sides using the addition property of equality. So we have 3 over 7x equals 2 plus 13 is 15. Now you'll notice I moved the x out to the side of the 3/7. Why can I do that? Well, remember when we multiply two things, we multiply the numerators and we multiply the denominators, so I can split it up this way. It's kind of sneaky, I know. Now, to get the x by itself, since it's multiplied by 3/7, we want to multiply by the reciprocal. And we need to do that on both sides, of course. So the 7/3 and the 3/7 cancel out, leaving us with an x. And 15 is 5 times 3 over 1. And that's times 7 over 3. The 3's cancel. And that leaves us with x equals 5 times 7, which is 35. Now, does that work out? Well, let's see. 3 times 35 over 7 minus 13. Does that equal 2? This is our check. Well, let's see. 35 is 5 times 7 over 7 minus 13. Does that equal 2? Well, our 7's cancel. And that leaves us with 3 times 5, which is 15, minus 13. And we need to know if that's 2. 15 minus 13 is indeed 2. So yes, that checks out. Great. Okay, looking at number 8. A moving truck rental costs $50 plus 25 cents per mile. How many miles can be traveled if we have a budget of $200 for the rental? So we need how many miles? So Before we drive it off the lot, we have to pay $50. So the total cost, which is $200, has to equal the $50 before we drive it off the lot, plus, if it costs us 25 cents per mile, that means it's 0.25 times the number of miles we drive. Let's call the number of miles we drive M. So 200 equals 50 plus 0.25 M. And now all we have to do is figure out how many miles that gets us. So subtract 50. And we get 150 equals 0.25 times the number of miles. Wow, that's an M, guys. Divide by 0.25 using the multiplication property of equality. And we get the number of miles we can drive is 600. Now, units are important. Now let's see if that checks out. So check. We have 200 equals 50 plus 0.25 times 600. Is that true? Let's see. 200 equals 50 plus 0.25 times 600 is 150. So 200 equals 200. Yes, so if we have a $200 budget, we can drive 600 miles. Okay, let's look at number 9. So after a 15% discount, so this is a percent, a sweater costs $42.49. To the nearest cent, what was the original cost of the sweater? So we need the original cost. Let's call the original cost, I don't know, let's just call it X. How's that? So, the total cost equals the original price minus the amount of the discount, right? So, what do we know? Afterwards, the total was $42.49. What was the original price? Well, that's what we don't know. And what's the discount? Well, the discount is 15% of the original price. So now we just have to solve. Remember, there's like a 1 in front of this X. So we have 42.49 equals 1x minus 0.15x. So 42.49, 1 minus 0.15 is 0.85. So we have 0.85x. Then using the multiplication property of equality, we divide by 0.85. And we get X equals $49.99. So $49.99 for the original cost of our sweater. Well, that wraps up section 2.5. So next we will talk about section 2.6, which is problem solving in geometry.